So Bucky's caught. The next time we see him, he's on a train, and I think he has a brief exchange with one of the other prisoners, and he's like, "Yo, do you think we can make a run for that guy's ankle?" I'm not sure if he saw a weapon,
Mhm.
but it was the dream of escape was over before it even started. There's German troops everywhere. They're pounding, yelling in their face. There is no escape once you're caught. And sure enough, they are led off of the train. This was probably one of the more powerful scenes of the episode when
Oh,
they are being marched through the recently bombed German city,
yeah.
and the crowd just grows increasingly restless once they see that they're Americans, and they start throwing punches and drawing weapons of their own. And the commanding German officer says, "Why are you protecting them? Just step back and let what happens. Let them fend for themselves."
Yeah. I was interested and I didn't have the time. I should have made the time to look up the truth behind this. Seems very believable in the circumstances. I was just kind of
Mhm.
curious if this was something that happened or if this was kind of a dramatized event to kind of showcase something. Although obviously it can be both. It was just interesting, yeah. And like we were just talking about the rural folk who are out of it. I think
Yeah.
at a human level, you can probably understand the feelings behind that anger. I mean, they're literally trying to pull their loved ones, it seems, out of the rubble of their own homes due to these bombs that were dropped. So yeah, just a wild scene. I just did not expect it. I assumed once he was captured and was being transported, like, okay, maybe he'll get interrogated and then he'll end up in a POW camp. I didn't see this detour.
Yeah, and I'm not even sure what the objective of marching them
Yeah.
through that street was, what was waiting at point B, wherever they were supposed to be going. Sure enough, we don't see. One of the guards draws his guns and just starts executing
Yeah.
some of the American soldiers. Bucky only gets spared because his clip runs out of bullets. Bucky gets knocked out, hit over the head, and the next time that he comes to is on the back of a body cart. He is
Yeah.
next to another soldier who's really out of it, just kind of mumbling what seems like a prayer. And the cart is being driven by two Germans. He has to sit idly by as the person mumbling gets executed with a shovel. The two Germans go to dig a grave for all the bodies, and Bucky sees his chance to escape. The two Germans realize that he's trying to escape, and they just say, "Let him go. He's not going to make it far." And that winds up being true. The next time
Yeah.
we catch up with him is passed out in the forest, and he is once again held at gunpoint by two German soldiers.
Well, seems to work out way better for him. I
Yeah.
mean, those guys were definitely just gonna once they realized that he was still alive, we're probably gonna kill him. So
Yep.
they pretty much let him live and become a prisoner, which I guess in their minds they don't give a shit.
No, those two were not dressed like they were soldiers
No.
either. So I'm sure that's just the
Yeah.
people that drive the body cart.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he gets found by the two German soldiers and is taken to Dulag Luft, POW transit camp in Frankfurt. And that is just a quick scene. I mean, I'm sure they have so many POWs, and the infrastructure for that is, it can't be established. I'm
Yeah.
sure
They
the
probably don't care to
military's
upgrade either.
exactly. Yeah. I mean, the militaries aren't breaking the bank trying to establish the POW infrastructure, but
Yeah.
that's where he goes. The transit center. I'm sure they go there before it is decided which stalag they wind up in. I think this next scene where Bucky is being interrogated by a Lieutenant Houseman, who is the German officer, this was probably the most interesting scene of
Yeah.
the episode for me, and I it's
I
almost
will
laughable how easy it is to typecast just the German officer who is faking being a good guy but is
the
actually a
voice
bad
too.
guy.
It's speaking English with that German accent sounds like
Oh yeah.
just goofy enough that like you kind of seem lighthearted, but we know that he's part of the Nazi war machine, so there's that
Mhm.
undercurrent of like tension there. It perfectly lines up.
Yeah, he's got the circular glasses
Yeah.
too. I mean, this guy was just perfectly creepy slash polite.
I
So very well casted.
love this actor. You haven't seen Dark. He's like the main character in Dark.
Really?
He is awesome. I was just beaming the fact when he showed up with the glasses and the cut and everything, and I was like, "This
Nice.
fucking motherfucker!" Yeah, it's so funny. He's a great actor. He was
Well, as I
fantastic here.
understand it, poaching dark actors is the way to go
Yeah,
if you are looking for a German
yeah,
actor.
that's fair. That's fair.
So, yeah, I mean it's a good scene. It one emphasizes that the German information gathering, Gestapo, the security, like whoever gathers their information does a great job of doing it because they already know who Bucky is.
Mhm.
They know where he was born. They know that he's married. Although, despite what he hears,
Yeah,
he doesn't seem like Bucky's been married. But I mean, he's trying to play good cop and bad cop all at the same time. He gives them some whiskey, a cigarette. He dangles. Oh, I know who won the World Series. Would you
yeah,
like to know? And he's interested in Buck Clevens. Well, I couldn't figure out if he was interested in Buck Clevens or if he was dangling information about Buck as a means to
yeah.
get more information from Bucky.
That seemed to be what he was doing in my perspective too. I
Mm,
thought he was using the Gestapo too, almost as like the bad cop elephant in the room combo,
that's true.
where it's like they're the bad guys. It's like I'm just trying to kind of help you out here. So like I'm trying to
I'm a
save you from the
flyer, a man of
Gestapo.
honor.
Yeah, type of deal.
Yeah.
So I just thought everything in the scene, all of it worked together. Bucky just being that guy that we know he is, just John
Hmm.
Egan Major, serial number, all that kind of stuff. So I just really enjoyed this scene. It's one of my favorite scenes, I think, from the whole show so far. Tons of bias baked into that because I love Lewis Hoffman, the German actor. But yeah, he was fooling
Yeah.
me too. I was like, dude, he's kind of like he's not a Gestapo guy. Like he's obviously trying to help him out a little bit. No,
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 he's good at his job.
yeah,
Absolutely
yeah,
not. So it is interesting though because when he brings up the Gestapo, he essentially says, "Hey, we know where you were originally captured, but unfortunately, there's no log of you as being a member of the crew of any of the
mm,
planes shot down. And if we don't have verification of that, that would make you a spy, Major Egan."
yeah,
And he says, "Well, they would be mistaken." And he gets dead silent, says, "The Gestapo are never mistaken. Like,
yeah.
even if they're mistaken, they're going to
They're
carry
right.
out their orders." Yeah, they're
Yeah,
right, one
yeah.
way
There's
or
no such
another.
thing. Yeah, I mean that was felt to me, and I was because I was trying to rack my brain, trying to remember what the deal was on the mission itself, because we know that he's Bucky. This is like has kind of wiggled his way into odd spots. Like, remember the one mission where he kind of makes up that position where
He
they're
was
all
the
like,
backup commanding pilot.
yeah, and they were like, I never
Yeah.
heard of that shit type of deal. So I was trying to remember if that was something that happened before the mission that they went down, but I now realizing it was mostly just an interrogation tactic to get more information, like to get Bucky to shake and be like, no, this is like what happened.
I could see it both ways because while he was the defined commanding pilot for the Munster mission, you also got to remember he was supposed to be on a weekend pass that
Yeah.
weekend. So potentially they
Mm.
may have gotten their intel, I don't know, a
Oh,
week
that's yeah.
prior before he made the game time decision to come back from his weekend pass early. So
That's
it could have
yeah.
been truth.
That's got to be it right there. The combo of the two.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
But again, I think we're agreed that was one of the better scenes of the
Yeah.
episode, if not the series as a whole. Very well acted by what was his name again?
Lewis Hoffman.
Lewis Hoffman.
Yes.
Hoping to see more of him. You know how I like my Germans.
Yeah. Shout out.
Shout out. Okay, so after he kind of doubles down and just gives him, "I'm Major Egan. This is my dog tag number. You're not getting anything else." I think he wanted to know how many replacement bombers they were going to be expecting at Thorpe Abbott, but Houseman cannot get any more information out of him. So he gets put in a cell and he promptly gets woken up from that cell and put kind of just ushered onto a train, assumedly to take them to the POW camp. This was a powerful, saying a lot
Yeah.
without saying much of anything when you see the soldiers being put onto their train and then you see a train filled to the brim. Clearly, there are women and children on there, arms reaching out. And this was a train full of Jews, most likely going to a concentration camp.
Yeah.
And I think all the American soldiers knew that too.
Yeah, I think this was a perfectly timed scene as well. I mean, we're into 6 episodes. We've spent a lot of time, I would say, removed from the actual impacts, effects, reasons of the war. We've spent a lot of time in planes, in barracks, et cetera, et cetera. And not to say that we're like, as viewers, we've like lost sight of what's going on, but just this like very stark, obvious, heavy reminder that like this is what was happening and this is why everyone was so willing to get in these planes. That's why everyone was so willing to keep getting in these planes and all of this stuff. So not that I won't go as far as to say as I enjoyed it. I thought it was just like a perfectly timed scene in the show.
It had to be there, I
Yeah.
think. And it was only 10 seconds of screen time, but it was very powerful. And I agree with everything you just said. This kind of it's a reminder, like you said, it's a reminder, and it frames why these soldiers were doing what they're doing. So I completely agree. You said that very well. So after the train goes by, it's a very powerful scene. We see some poor sap try and make a break for it. Not sure where his head was at, but he gets promptly executed, and then they put the body on the
Yeah.
train. That's crazy.
Bucky
I
too
just
was pretty shook at that as well. You could tell that he was like, "Oh
yeah.
shit." I'm just was thinking like, too. You're riding the train. It's probably dark all day. Like you're just that. You feel that space around you too. Like
Yeah.
you, it's just yeah, it's horrifying.
No, that's got to be a horrible train ride, no matter how you slice it. You know what your destination is, and we'll get to this last scene here. I mean, if they didn't finish this episode with the uplifting reveal that a lot of our friendly faces from the 100th are alive and well in the POW camp, this could have had a much, much more somber tone to the entire episode. But as Bucky is arriving at the POW camp, he is immediately greeted by Crank and Murph. So we see those familiar faces. And sure enough, our boy Buck Clevin is alive and well at the POW camp. And it was good to see him.
I mean, he's must be the coolest POW in Germany at this point. I've never seen a man so relaxed behind barbed wire, and he looks great, clean shaven still, from what I
He
remember.
He always does, yeah. And I think in the subsequent episodes we are going to get into what life is for these people, but I mean, Crank, Murph, and even Buck seem to be in pretty high spirits considering they're
Yeah,
at a POW camp. I think I'm going to do some research about how the different POWs were treated in World War II. As I recall, you did not want to be a Russian POW or
fair.
in Japan as a POW. Those are the two
Also
that would
fair.
just absolutely treat you like garbage. But don't quote me on that, people. I will do some research for the next episode when we kind of go into life as a POW. But
Yeah, I mean, obviously that'll be the main focus. You'll do research, which I'm sure is there's an ample amount of firsthand accounts of what it
mm,
was like. Obviously, the show had access to those as well. So I'm interested to see what that's like. It was giving me Shawshank Redemption vibes. And I only say that because that's like one of the only prison movies that I've really seen of like the guys hanging out in the yard type of deal. So it won't be, I would say, maybe as uplifting as Shawshank. Oh, is that the right word for Shawshank? No, it's probably not. But the ending of Shawshank is fairly uplifting. But we'll see if we get a
yeah,
prison break as well. Bucky doesn't seem like the type of guy. He's already was thinking about getting out, so he seems like the type of
yeah.
guy to try to get out of this place. So we'll see.
I don't know. At a certain point, you got to cut your losses. And he also saw how things can go wrong when you're
Mhm.
being processed as a prisoner by
Yeah,
German guards. So
that's fair.
I don't know. The show is definitely going to get into what the day to day as a POW is, but preliminary returns seem as though they are in good spirits,
Yeah.
considering. But
Yeah. Well, I guess
yeah.
the alternative being you blow up in the sky and you're no longer alive. So maybe making
Mhm.
it to somewhere with people you know on 2 feet on the ground probably feels somewhat good.
For sure. But end of part 6, this is going to be at least one of our settings for the rest of the show is the Luftwaffe controlled Stalag Luft 3 in, I think it's either Sonag, Germany or Salag, Germany. I will do some research on that as well for the next episode.